Sheriff, I want to start by thanking you for your service as a law enforcement officer and in Congress. And I call you Sheriff when I pass by you because I always believe in calling people by their highest title. And as much as it is wonderful, and I'm sure the people in your family are proud of your service in the United States Congress, I am proudest of your willingness to sacrifice for the people of Washington as a sheriff.
Thank you.
Kevin Carper was a uniformed patrol officer with the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Department. He was not a detective. He was not in management. He was just a regular police officer like the ones we see every day in our towns and cities. And Kevin responded to a domestic violence call. Those who are unfamiliar with law enforcement have a tendency sometimes to refer to those as routine calls. There is nothing routine about a call, and everyone in law enforcement knows it. Off of Airport Road in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Kevin and his partner arrived to find William Seach on the front porch of his small home pointing a large caliber gun at his wife, Judy. Judy was crouched down in the front yard trying to protect herself, trying to shield herself behind a tree. And William was pointing the gun at her and alternatively pointing the gun at law enforcement who had just arrived on the scene. And you know, Sheriff Reichert, Mr. Speaker, it all seems so easy in hindsight. Do you shoot? Do you pull the trigger? Is the gun real? You have split seconds to make these decisions, only to have them second-guessed for months, if not years, afterward. Is the gun real? Is it loaded? William Seach finally turned the gun towards his wife, and he shot her. And as he was turning the gun towards law enforcement, no doubt to shoot them, they returned fire. And they struck William Seach, and as one officer ran towards his fallen wife, Judy, Kevin Carper ran to the front porch to make sure that William Seach didn't shoot anybody else. And as he got on the front porch, Mr. Speaker, he heard the cries of children. Unbeknownst to Kevin and his partner, there were children inside that mobile home, and the bullets from one of the officers' guns had struck one of the children. William Seach survived and was charged with murder. Both of the little girls ultimately survived, although one was badly, badly injured. And I met Kevin when we were preparing for trial. He was an essential witness. I needed to prepare for what would come during this trial. He would be second-guessed. His every move would be scrutinized. In a very real sense, he would not only be blamed for Judy Seach's murder, he would be blamed for shooting one of the little girls inside that home. And then he'd be blamed for not doing enough to protect Judy Seach, not making the right split-second decision. And I tried to prepare Kevin for what would be a grueling cross-examination. And it was clear to me his mind and heart were somewhere else. So finally I said, Kevin, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't have a choice. And he said, I know, Solicitor Gowdy. He had tears streaming down his face in my office. I know, Solicitor Gowdy, but I shot that little girl. Objectively, Kevin Carper did everything right that night. He responded to an incredibly tense domestic call. He was confronted with a man holding a gun. Was it a real gun? Was it loaded? All of these thoughts going through his mind. And as soon as William Seach shot and murdered his wife, he returned fire. Objectively, we know everything he did was right. But it didn't matter how many times I told Kevin, you did the right thing. Deputy Kevin Carper heard me. Father, husband Kevin Carper had tears streaming down his face at the thought that he would have hurt a child. Well, we went through the trial, and he was, as you might imagine, an indispensable witness. And, Mr. Speaker, he could not have done a better job in that murder trial. And yeah, he was a tough police officer in a uniform. But when it came time to describe walking on the front porch and hearing the cries of children. He became a husband and a father again. And in front of a jury, Sheriff, and you know this is hard for police to do, in front of a jury, this tough, brave man broke down in tears. And the jury had a chance to see the humanity of police officers. The jury had a chance to see that protect and serve and defend part of police officers. And he was convicted. William Seitz was convicted in no small part because of Kevin Carper's help. And in South Carolina, the sentencing takes place immediately after the trial. So there was family to talk to and to prepare them for the sentencing hearing so they could allocute on what Judy Seitz's life meant to them and what the proper punishment should be. And Mr. Speaker, Sheriff Reichert, I wanted to tell Kevin what a great job he had done. I wanted to tell Kevin how impressed I was with his humanity. I wanted to tell Kevin, I intended to tell Kevin that you took a cynical old prosecutor and you made him believe again that there are women and men who go into this line of work for all the right reasons. That's what I intended to tell him. But in the hustle and bustle of sentencing, he slipped out the back of the courtroom, and we went on with the sentencing hearing. But I knew that I would see him again, and I would have a chance to tell him. I'd have a chance to tell his boss, you need to watch that guy, make him a homicide detective. He's really good. I'd have a chance to tell him he did great by those little girls. I knew I'd see him again and I'd have a chance to tell him again. And I did see him again. Laying aside a roadside. Shot to death during a routine traffic stop. He was shot by a man who had been arrested more than 30 times. If you've ever attended an officer's funeral, the finality of that death hits you the very hardest at the end, where they do the radio call. Deputy Kevin Carper, do you read? Deputy Kevin Carper, can you hear us? And of course, there's silence. And then at the end, it's Deputy Kevin Carper, you are clear to go home. I never told Kevin what I should have told him. Deputy Kevin Carper, you were a credit to law enforcement. Husband, father, Kevin Carper, you're a credit to humanity and your family. I wish I had told you when I should have told you. And I hope that all of my other friends in prosecution and in law enforcement now will not wait too long to tell the men and women of law enforcement how grateful they are for their service. With that, I would yield.